So I know there's going to be people who are watching this that are curious about getting into street photography, but they're hesitant to do so because they're worried about having either a verbal or, in worst case scenario, a physical confrontation with someone on the street. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 tips to avoid confrontation when doing street photography, and stick around until the end because I'll also be sharing ways that you can handle confrontation should you get into a situation with someone. Okay, let's get into it. I've seen all types of confrontation in street photography. I've reported on situations which have got quite bad, quite physical, and not been great for the street photographer. And I've also been in situations myself throughout my time of doing street photography for the past decade or so where people have chased me, people have grabbed me, people have got into my face, and I've had to deal with the situation in order to diffuse it and move forward. So with that, over time, I started to develop strategies through educating myself from street photographers who'd been doing it much longer than I, and also developing some of my own habits that help me stop confrontation from happening and have a more positive experience, a more fluid experience when out on the streets making photographs. Okay, so the first tip is to try and avoid making eye contact with your subject. Now, this one kind of came to me through Gary Winogrand. He was doing a documentary. If you don't know who Gary Winogrand is and you're new to street photography, then I do recommend checking him out. He's one of the greats. And one of the best teachings I got was watching tape of him out on the streets. And what he would do was, instead of kind of zoning in on his subject and looking at them and taking the picture, he'd kind of mess around with his camera like this, and he'd be flicking it around and he'd be taking shots. And he kind of looked a little bit like he didn't know what he was doing, when in actual fact, he was in complete control of the situation. Now, why is this a good thing? Okay, so when you're kind of looking around, not knowing what you're doing, people are maybe kind of curious about what you are and who you are and what you're doing, but they won't necessarily think it's in relation to them. They'll just think you're a guy or a girl out on the street, just snapping away, not really paying attention. And that helps you create images kind of in a stealth-like mode, but whilst being in broad daylight for all to see. So try and avoid eye contact. You can even just completely look the other way if you don't want to go full Winogrand and you just want to kind of hold your camera this way and look this way. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make it look like it's an accident that I've hit my shutter. Like I'll hit the shutter button and I'll go, oops. And then that just diffuses a person. They'll be like, oh, what, oops, what? And then they'll just go on and then they'll move on. So that's tip number 1. Try and avoid eye contact with the subject and make it look like they're completely irrelevant to the situation that's going on, when in actual fact, they're the most relevant part of the frame. Okay, so tip number 2, maybe slightly controversial, borderline gaslighting, but it's harmless, really. What I will do is, if I'm making a photograph of someone, I'll kind of have the body language after I've made the shot that my actual subject was in the background, make it look like it may be a building or something else, and kind of deceive the subject into making them believe they got in your way. The amount of times that I've done this and someone's apologized to me, we have a laugh about it and we go about our merry way. Okay, so the third tip is to have a relaxed demeanor about you, just in kind of what I would describe as a flow state. Maybe have a smile on your face, just go around, make it look like you're just having a load of fun and good time, and you're not kind of in this high-pressured situation. Because here's the thing, if you're worried about confrontation and it's showing, then you'll have a body language about you, a demeanor about you that people aren't really going to be fond of. It'll create a bit of a disconnect and mistrust between you and your subject, but they'll make snap judgments, and if you've got kind of a nervous energy, that'll make them feel a bit nervous. It may make them think something bad or wrong is happening. And then that can escalate into confrontation. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? You seem suspect. Whereas if you're just loose and just like, isn't the world a wonderful place? I've got a camera. We're all breathing in the earth's air. The sunshine is out if you live in somewhere with the sun. And we're all living another day. This is wonderful. Let's make some snappy snaps and let's go about. People are less likely to be mistrusting of you. So have a very open, relaxed, happy, welcoming demeanor. And that's going to put you in good stead to avoid confrontation when out and about making street photographs. Okay, so let's just say you've done all that and none of it's worked.
Aww, why?
You know, there are times that some people just want to get up into your space and find out what's going on. And I should preface this by saying the amount of time I've been doing street photography, I can count on one hand how many times I've had a confrontation that's really stuck with me. Sure, there's been times where people kind of give me the odd look or a frown or, hey, what's going on here? But for the most part, I've made thousands and thousands of street photographs, and most of them I've done so without any form of issue with the subjects that are in the frames. But of course, there are times where the tactics don't work and you're going to get into a situation. How do you deal with it? So the first thing to do is keep a distance between you and the subject. That's going to help. Just ensure that if on the very rare occasion someone may want to start throwing hands, you're at a good distance away so you can either get out of there or defend yourself, okay? And it also shows that by keeping your distance, you're not here for confrontation. What you want to do is diffuse the situation. You want to work and find a common ground with the individual so you can both go about your days without it getting out of control. Which brings me to the next point. I see a lot of street photographers who get their back up as soon as someone confronts them, and they go for the classic, it's not illegal, know your laws, I'm not doing anything wrong. And while all of that is true, what it's actually doing is building a defense mechanism, and you're going to start having a back and forth with someone, and it becomes more about winning the confrontation than diffusing it. So, of course, yes, if there are occasions where you need to just politely explain to someone that no laws are being broken, and which is one of the reasons, you know, some people may have a problem with it. They may not think it's legal. And if you just say, hey, that's not the case, you're not trying to shame them. You're not trying to embarrass them. You're not trying to one-up them. You're just there to explain the reason I'm doing it is because X, Y, Z, and then that's going to help. So don't try and get into an argument with them. And then the last thing what I would do is just explain why you do what you do. Just say, hey, look, I'm a street photographer. I love making images of people on the street. I had no bad intentions with making your photo. It's just this particular scene, for whatever reason, you explained to them was eye-catching, and I felt I could make a really good image. Show them the image. Give them a compliment. Say, look how great you look in this image, and show them what you do and show that you've got no bad intention, because that's what's probably the problem in today's day and age, is because so many images are going on the internet, people don't know what people's intentions are anymore. You've got YouTubers doing silly pranks. You've got people who are making content by making other normal people on the street look like fools, and people are a little bit more distant to the idea of street photography. And it's not our job to necessarily defend it, but more so, I say, to get people on our side, okay? And we do that by just explaining what we do and why we do it, and showing them that what we do is actually a positive thing, and that is actually a benefit to society. And I've often found, if I've ever needed to use that approach, we end up having a good chat afterwards. We have a laugh. They become curious. They ask questions. I ask questions about them. And hey, we may not be friends by the end of it, but we're a little bit closer than we were before we had the interaction. So keep that in mind. Okay, so that was a quick explainer video on street photography confrontation and what you can do to avoid it. I'm curious what situations you found yourself in when doing street photography and how you've dealt with it. So please do let me know in the comments below. And if you did find this video useful, do subscribe, hit a like, tap that bell icon so YouTube lets you know when I next publish. And I'll be back with another video soon. I'm Dan. This is M Frames. See ya.